Hi everyone, and it is Kate back for another Victober video. And this video I'm doing is one that I was inspired to do as I was tweaking and fixing my TBR for Victober. Narrowing down a TBR for 1 month that's focused on one of your favorite types of literature is very tricky, because you start doing research and you start hearing about more and more authors you had no idea existed, or authors who you've heard of one of their famous works but you've heard of none of the other ones. So these are either authors who I've read some of their works and I want to read more, or authors that I just have a feeling I will really like and I think I'll want to read all of them. I have 10 authors to talk about. And the first is Geraldine Jewsbury. She wrote 6 novels total, and then, a bit of nonfiction, a bit of short stories. But what I'm most excited about, like many booktubers, I think, are novels. So yes, Geraldine Jewsbury I read for the first time last Victober, and I read The Half-Sisters with Katie from Books and Things. We had both heard about that book from Jen Campbell when she talked about an underrated classic. And this is about these 2 sisters who are half-sisters. And the one who is kind of shunned from society, but ironically is making more moral choices. And then the one who is more high up in society, but she's making more immoral choices. So she's saying a lot about, what does your rank in society say about you? Does money mean necessarily that you are a better person or, a more upstanding citizen? I thought that was a really interesting take to have, but it was a very compelling novel. And also, Katie and I were saying it did not feel Victorian. It was so fast paced and the dialogue was just so quick. It was such a fun read. I really had trouble putting it down anytime I needed to do life. It was just a really great treat of a book. I absolutely loved it. So I was really happy that I picked it up, and I think it is one that I will go back to. But so when I was talking about my TBR, Katie said she was thinking about putting a Geraldine Jewsbury on her list for this year, and I thought, oh, I didn't know she wrote other stuff. It just didn't occur to me. And then now that I've started looking into most Victorian authors, when they have written one thing, it's not just one thing that they wrote. They write a ton of stuff. So it is, in a way, so terribly exciting, because that means I will probably never run out of Victorian literature to read. And if for some reason I was just a reading machine and did run out, I think rereading is some of my favorite reading to do. So it will be really neat, to go back to some of these favorites and see what I think about them then a few years later. Author number 2 is George Eliot. George Eliot has 8 novels total, which before research I did not know that. You hear about Middlemarch and Daniel Deronda. I had heard about Adam Bede. I had heard about The Mill on the Floss and Silas Marner, but I think Romola is one I hadn't prior to doing research, and then there's a couple more. And she also has a number of short stories, including The Lifted Veil, which is one of the books that I recommended as a Victorian novel with supernatural elements in it. So I think that's really neat that she has this one that's very different. But I'm excited she has 8 novels. I'm definitely going to take my time with George Eliot. I almost think one a year I will be happy reading of her, because she does take so much effort. But what I really look forward to, actually even more than reading her books the first time, is rereading her books. I've talked before about how her books, the farther out I get from them, I realize the more that they have stayed with me. So I think she's an author I look forward to growing old with and coming back to now and again. The next author is Thomas Hardy. So the first Thomas Hardy I read was Under the Greenwood Tree, and this was one that I was underwhelmed by, but I was not surprised to be underwhelmed. I wanted to try it, just to try his writing, but I had not heard it's amazing, from people who like his work. So then I read The Woodlanders, which ended up, one of my top 10 Victorian novels, and absolutely loved it. And I love how much a part of his plots that nature is, how deeply and emotionally powerful his books are, how poignant, and not necessarily things that feel like would happen in my life, because they're so incredibly tragic. I don't think anyone necessarily feels that their life is going to be tragic before it is. But I really love, they're so romantic, and I just really, really like them. So evocative, and I really look forward to reading more of his. And so it's really neat, you know, Katie from Books and Things, she has a whole, she did a whole, like, Thomas Hardy, two weeks of Thomas Hardy, and she talked about all of his books. So I am hoping, you know, eventually to get to all of his. And the next author is Wilkie Collins. This is an author who a year ago I would have laughed if you said this was going to be on my top 10, you know, Victorian authors that I wanted to read all of their works, because I just did not think I was going to get along with Wilkie Collins. A couple years ago, I tried maybe 100 pages of The Woman in White, and then last October, I tried The Moonstone. I think I got only like 50 pages into that and thought, you know what, I don't really like Wilkie Collins. But then something happened, and in March, I tried The Moonstone again, and I couldn't put it down, and I absolutely loved it. I think I just need to have, I hear mystery, and I immediately think of hard-boiled mysteries with lots of character development, and you know, it's going to be like a mystery I would read today, and I just need to have very different expectations. No, it is not going to be like a mystery I would read today. It's going to feel very different, and so I think having those different expectations will help me going into his future ones, because his plots sound really interesting. There's one called No Name. There were several that I was also looking into reading this year, but I thought, you know what, it's Halloween, I'm going to read The Woman in White. But I don't know if I said it, but he has 12 novels total. And so the authors that I'm naming, as I'm continuing to name them, the number of novels that they have written have gone up. So I've done it in order from least to most. The next author is Dinah Craik, 12 novels total. And I first learned about Dinah Craik from Shelley Dewey's book, Not Just Jane. And she just made her sound like such an intriguing author, had plots that would interest me, very character driven, and just things that I want to try out. So it is a little risky to put her on this list, because when I'm filming this, I have not started John Halifax, A Gentleman. And I don't know if I'm going to like the writing style, but if I do, it's very exciting, because then I will have 11 more to read after that. That is why the Victorian era is so exciting if you enjoy the writing, because you have such a wealth of literature to get to. And on top of that, the books are so cheap if you're willing to do the ebooks of them. Just, you know, $1, a couple dollars at most. It's really great. They're so easy to access. Then the next author, who will come as no surprise, is Charles Dickens. Now, Charles Dickens has 16 full-length novels total. And as of, you know, the end of October, if I have finished Our Mutual Friend, I will have finished half of them. I will only have 8 to go. And which is really shocking, because it doesn't feel like I've read that many Charles Dickens. But also exciting, because then it'll be neat to revisit favorites. So far, Dombey and Son and Great Expectations are my 2 favorite. So I think it will be interesting to see, you know, if some like knock them off the list. But still, then others that are way high up there. Bleak House is not, you know, my favorite, but I think it's number 3. So just really neat to see all the different plots and characters that he has, and I look forward to reading all of his books. Next is R.D. Blackmore, who has 25 novels total. That is a lot of novels. So R.D. Blackmore wrote Lorna Doone, which I read last October and fell in love with. I loved it so much. And he's an author that, before Katie talking to her again, I had no idea he wrote other books. I've just only heard about Lorna Doone, you know, all these years. So really looking forward to checking him out more, because I think he's going to have highly compelling adventure stories. They might not be the most character driven, but when I want something very plot heavy with rich writing and detail, I think he'll be a great author to go to. And then the numbers just keep on increasing. Anthony Trollope wrote a total of 47 novels. So at the end of October, if I am successful with reading Dr. Thorne, that will mean that I have read 4 of those 47 novels total. I definitely think that I will really enjoy the whole Barsetshire series. And then I've heard really good things about the Pallisers novels. So he has so much writing to get to. I know Katie from Books and Things really loves Rachel Ray. And I read The Way We Live Now. I liked it. Either I wasn't ready for it, or it was on too, like, grand of a spectrum. It was just way too big, too many characters, pretty overwhelming, to be honest. So definitely still want to try him out though. And then maybe, years from now, I would more appreciate The Way We Live Now. The next author on the list is Mary Elizabeth Braddon, an author that is on my TBR for this month, Lady Audley's Secret. And Mary Elizabeth Braddon wrote a total of 54 novels. So she wrote what was known as the sensation novel. Highly exaggerated, melodramatic plots. They don't feel realistic at all, but boy, does it make good reading. That's what I hear from all of the people who are fans of her. They know she is what she is, but it's just highly enjoyable. So I do want to see what I think of Lady Audley's Secret. I just have this feeling that the next year, while I have a newborn, I'm going to be tired, and I just picture myself really wanting something highly entertaining like that to read. And especially when I don't have all my hands free, I can get, her books on my Nook and get them for so cheap. And so to have that e-reader there, hold a baby in the other hand, and I think, I don't know, I have a feeling that I'll be able to get through her books well on that. And then another author that I think could be a good postpartum author is Margaret Oliphant. Are you ready for how many she wrote? Margaret Oliphant wrote a total of 96 novels. Can you imagine, first of all, thinking of 96 plots and then let alone writing 96 of those books? I don't even know 96 people. I just can't, it astounds me. So 96 novels total for Margaret Oliphant, but I think she is just going to be such a gem because I've heard she is for those who love Jane Austen. So I read The Rector and The Doctor's Family and loved those. Hopefully when this is going up, I will have read Salem Chapel, and then I can't remember the other ones. They're the third and the fourth, and the Carlingford Chronicles, and then I'm hosting a read-along of Mrs. Marchbanks. And I think it's really fun. I think there's lots of everyday details, domesticity referenced in her novels, but also really engaging characters and humor and emotional depth. I don't know, I think she's quickly going to become a favorite author the more I read by her. 96 novels, folks. Those are all of the authors, the Victorian authors I would like to read in full. Of course, there are just oodles and oodles of Victorian authors that I want to try, but these are the ones that I have a feeling will be just like this wealth, this gold mine of literature just waiting for me to jump into. So yes, those are all of them. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing about this. Let me know if any of those are on your list, or if there are some that I didn't talk about that are on your list. I would love to chat with you in the comment section, and I will see you guys for another bookish video soon. Bye.